Good morning, welcome to this week's Record Rangers podcast, brought to you by our sponsors NordVPN, helping keep you safe online. It can even let you stream your home data when you're abroad, thanks to them. So my name's Douglas Dickie. I'm here to give you the fan's eye view, which is sometimes quite contradictory in the space of the programme at the moment with the way things Rangers are going. I'm joined by Scott McDermott from the Daily Record, and I'm really pleased to say we're joined by the author of the Gallant Pioneers book, former member of the Rangers Fan Advisory Board, all-round good guy, former Daily Record royalty, Gary Ralston. Gary, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing away great, but you're demising me. I'm still on the Rangers Fan Advisory Board, no less they've made a decision this morning. So and it's I'm thoroughly enjoying being in that. I'm great, again. It's good to be back amongst old friends at the Daily Record. I think I'm in total having about 20 years there, so it's lots of happy memories. So great to be here this morning.
Gary, I know a lot of Rangers fans will know that you've had your health issues in the last few weeks. I think you're still undergoing treatment right now. Can you give us a wee idea of how you're feeling right now, how things are going?
Absolutely, and I'll tell it for the simple reason that I've been banging the drum for prostate awareness. I've got prostate cancer, which is sadly now going advanced, but it's not as if it's end of life thing. It just means that I'm undergoing some radiotherapy just now at the Beatson, so I've got another few weeks of that to go. So I've been saying to all guys aged between 40 and 80, I was at a news conference the other week with Chris Hoy and Kenny Logan and Sir Tom Hunter. Go and get your prostates checked, guys, please. We're big enough and brave enough to get it done. Just go into scottishprostate.com and there'll be somewhere locally that you can go get a PSA test and put your mind at ease. But my health is fine. Looking forward to a great summer and an exciting title climax.
Yeah, listen, I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say I wish you, we wish you all the best, Gary, and we're all rooting for you, Scott.
Guys, I know you're doing a lot of charity work and all that now. I just wondered, how humbling has that been for you? The amount of money you've raised, the awareness that you're raising. Is that kind of kept you going through this kind of tough time for you?
But it certainly helps, Scott. I feel it's smashing nicey. Does a lot of good charity work and doesn't like talking about it. I've been the number of people that have reached out. I know you guys were there a couple of weeks ago. Tam Cowan phoned and says, Gary, I want to do a night for you. And my pals Raoul and Bubbles, who own the Eagle Lodge up in Bishop Briggs, made their place available for the night. So it was about 200 people there, a complete sellout, and it was amazing. And it's allowed me to raise around over £46,500 for the Ailey Brown appeal, which is a charity up here where I live in Stirling that offers respite to the children and the families of children who have got cancer. A beautiful home up in Thornhill, just a few miles up the road. So it costs $75,000 a year to keep that house running. So to have played a small part in that was great, and just really humbling, as you say, Scott, the number of people that have stepped forward in love and support. It's been an amazing community effort, and by community I mean everybody: Rangers fans, Celtic fans, community up here in Stirling, colleagues, former colleagues like your good selves. It's just been absolutely amazing, and it certainly has been a real tonic and a real focus for me as I go through this wee difficult period with the old prostate cancer.
Gary, if someone was wanting to help you with your fundraising, contribute, how would they go about that?
Yeah, listen, all donations gratefully received still, and if you just go to Just Giving and put in my name, Gary Ralston, Ralston, as on screen, it will come up. So a fantastic offer, a fantastic amount raised so far. Guys like John Bennett, former Rangers chairman, just been exceptional. Rangers themselves offered a couple of directors' box tickets as well, as well as other support. So the support from the wider Rangers community and follow websites and other things, it's just been absolutely fantastic. So it's been amazing. So thank you to everyone who has helped to contribute to that near £50,000 sum.
And have you had a chance to go to many of the games, guys? I know you'll be watching a lot of games. Have you had a chance to go?
I was there. In fact, I get invited to director's box, believe it or not, a couple of Saturdays ago for the Dundee United game and get the season tickets there. I was up at the Celtic game, ended up in the Broomlin Road end, the 2-each game. It's quite.
I hope it wasn't the cup game, Gary, or maybe on the I'm saying, I'm glad it wasn't the cup game you were in the Broomlawn in, or you're maybe in the wrong show.
Exactly. So it was a right eye opener next to the fence. Big Kyle Lafferty was sitting 2 rows in front of me as well, so he was getting plenty of stick as well. But the big man was just smiling through it all. So yeah, been able to get to a few games, and the season tickets are well in use as well. So looking forward to the game coming up a week on Sunday as well.
Well, it's brilliant to see the Rangers family rallying round, mate. And as I said earlier, we obviously wish you all the best. We'll move on to discuss events on Sunday. Not great for the old heart rate, I think it's fair to say. Rangers obviously 2-0 down after 30 minutes at Falkirk. I think we all feared the worst. I know I certainly did. And within 10, 15 minutes of half-time, we're 4-2 up. And I still fear the worst, obviously, because, this title race is just, it seems to lurch from one drama to another. 6-3 is a scoreline. I can't remember ever seeing a Rangers game. I think it's the early 80s was the last time Rangers won a game 6-3. Scott, how do you even begin to evaluate a match like that? It's quite difficult in some ways.
It is difficult. It just feels with this Rangers team, it's felt like for a few years, even with different players, like real Jekyll and Hyde performances. Me and Andy Newport were sitting there on Sunday at half time, absolutely slaughtering them, because you're thinking, where's the urgency, where's the intensity, where's the tempo? This might be a team going for a title, and they were so slow out the blocks at Falkirk. Look, I know the wind was difficult, the pitch can be difficult to get used to, but they knew what they were going into, and I just thought the attitude at the start of the game was really poor. As I said, I was sitting at half time, think you're going to need to be really critical of this performance. But whatever was said at half time, like Danny Rohl said after the game, he didn't have to say too much because players were actually having a go at each other, which is good to hear. I think when they lost the second goal, I looked at some of the players and there was a few of them, Big Fernandez in particular, was pointing fingers and demanding more of guys run about them, which, as I say, is good to see. But the second half was night and day. Just really upped their level. Played with a bit of pace, played forward, played more direct. I always think this Rangers team are at their best when they go more direct. And as I say, they blew Falkirk away in the first kind of 10-15 minutes. Although, like you, Douglas, when it goes, they get a penalty to go 4-3, you think, here we go again. But credit to them, because again they reacted in a positive manner. They go and get another 2 goals, and by the end, it looks like a really convincing win and a statement of intent, really, in terms of the title race. Because after Celtic and Hearts winning on Saturday, there was real pressure on Rangers to go and get the job done on Sunday. If you're a Celtic Hearts fan, there's no doubt you're looking at that game thinking, Rangers are going to struggle there. Falkirk in really good form, secure in the top 6. Rangers haven't beaten them this season. And then, of course, when they go 2 up early on, Celtic and Hearts fans must have thought, right, here we go. This is the perfect day for us. So Rangers were under pressure, but they responded really well, and I just think that will give them a massive boost. Obviously, going into the split.
Gary, one thing that's kind of concerned me in recent weeks, we're obviously scoring an awful lot of goals. We started conceding a few again as well. And I think throughout Rohl's time here, one thing that he's really focused on is making us hard to score against. And for a long, long period, it felt the only time we did concede goals was, one of what I call a comedy goal, when someone basically gives one away. Yet on Sunday, it felt like Falkirk cut us open a few times. I felt we looked really weak on the flanks defensively. I think our 2 best fullbacks weren't there. John Sterling and Romans. And I think, we've spoken about Meg Homa a few times this year. I thought he was badly at fault for their first goal. And I just think he looks like something that's going to be targeted if we need to rely on him in this run-in. Tav's obviously been an incredible servant. But he's starting to look like a guy whose legs can no longer do what the head can still do. Is that the concern as we can enter these last 5 games?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have any concerns. Look, I'm not going to say Rangers are going to win the league easy, and I get why there's a degree of people feeling a bit fraught about certain things. But you're effectively down to the last 5 games of the season. And I think that everything that you've said is valid. You know, Romans and Dujon Sterling, their athleticism in particular. Romans, I like him at the back post, because he can really attack the back post area. He's a real potent threat. I think Rangers have got really good strength and depth. And I don't think that anybody who's, for the first time and arguably, well, even a 55 season, Rangers in the end won it relatively comfortably. But, this is the first time maybe in, 15, maybe 20 years where there's been a title race. And title races are never won 4-0 and 5-0 and 6-0. The last half a dozen games of any season when it's nip and tuck at the top like that, we've all seen it in previous years. Helicopter Sunday, case in point. There's going to be nerves, there's going to be points dropped, there's going to be a goal scored. But I think if Rangers team has shown really, really good character, I thought, like you did, Scott, I thought maybe the best, and I still think the best that this Rangers team is yet to come, probably next season. But they haven't lost a league game in how long? They've only lost 2 this season. I know there's been a couple of draws in it this year, for example. So I think we should maybe give a wee bit of credit rather than saying, worrying about this, worrying about that, worrying about the next thing. Rangers have got the strength and depth, I think, to do it. You look at the difference that Miovski made when he came on at half-time, for example. So I think that you look at the bench and Rangers look really strong. So I think it's time for the fans just to, I'm not saying calm down, everybody is getting excited. However, the bottom line is, I think that that this Rangers team are shown enough to think that they can earn our trust as fans. And so I just think a wee bit more perspective is required, given that it is only the 5 final games of the season. And there's make a prediction now. Every game is going to be a bit like the Falkirk game. There'll be ups and downs within those matches. But I think Rangers have shown enough with big statement wins this season, Hearts, Celtic, to show that they can do it. They shouldn't fear anyone.
I think the goals is a big thing. Doug, I know what you're saying. Listen, I've got slight concerns defensively as well. And this is, a few weeks ago, I was saying I thought Giga and Fernandez could be the guys that win them the league because they look so solid, and getting clean sheets. Obviously, they weren't solid at the weekend, but I mean that's 14 goals now. I think the last 3 games, 9 different scorers. As Gaz touched on there, as well as Sharmiti, you've now got Majovski, who seems to be hitting a wee bit of form, even if it is for the bench, so you can actually rely on a proven Premiership goal scorer to come on at certain points in the game. Different scorers, Chukwani, Raskins chipping in as well. I think for Rangers fans, that will be the big plus because, especially when you look across the city, I know Hearts have got Shankland and Braga who are doing really well for them. But at Celtic, they're struggling for strikers, struggling for goals. So you'd like to think that would give Rangers an edge get into the split to score that amount of goals. When at times this season, Rangers were struggling for goals, as we know, but it seems like just at the right time, just as we're coming into the business end of the season, they've kind of found their shooting boots, and that should give the fans encouragement.
Do you think, Scott? Gary said that it's about time the fans maybe gave this team a bit of credit. I'm going to put my hands up here, but that's because I'm a flaky guy. I'm very much glass half empty at times when it comes to the Rangers. I've been critical of their mentality this season. I doubted, especially after the Celtic games, those 2 Celtic games. I felt kind of ended my hopes of winning the league. If I'm being honest, we've responded with 4 wins. St Mirren wasn't pretty, but it was pretty comfortable. Aberdeen was comfortable. Dundee United was less comfortable than it probably should have been, but in the end, a deserved victory, and obviously Sunday there. Do you think they've answered those? They've answered those questions about their mentality.
Personally, I don't think that they'll completely answer them until they win a title, Douglas. That's just me. I'm probably a bit like you in that sense, but that kind of lack of trust for the fans to the players, that's a historical thing. That's because of the the kind of torture they've endured in the last few years. Even a couple of years ago when Philippe Clement got them into a position where they could go and win the league. They go and drop points at Dundee and Ross County and stuff like that. So there is a lack of trust there because of the one title in 15 years, whatever it is. That kind of run of failure. It does make fans think, God, we're never going to get out of this. And as you say, the mentality question, it will only truly be answered once they've got their hands on that trophy again. But as I say, I do think it's encouraging. Gaz touched on it. They've had big wins. They have come up with big wins at Celtic Park and against Hearts at Ibrox. When they've responded well to the losing the 2 goals in the Old Firm game when they were 2-0 up. You thought, right, here we go, and then it was a real setback by full time. They've got themselves into a decent position, especially, look, we'll not go over it again, but given where they were when Danny Rohl came in, to think they're in this position 5 games to go with a real chance of going and winning it, and they've actually hit a bit of form, as I say, at the right time, then they have answered a few questions, but and I'm not trying to put a big dampener on it because I agree with Gaz. I think they're in a good place. I think the fans need to be optimistic. But ultimately, with 5 games to go, they could still finish third. And fans will be like, oof, what was that? What was that season? What was that season all about? They'll go back to how it started and Russell Martin and everything that went wrong. So it's on a knife edge at the moment. The margins are so fine. But they're in a decent place form-wise. They're scoring goals. The mentality looks pretty good, even at the weekends. I say to come back in the second half. So I know it's tough for fans at times, but they need to try and be, as Gaz says, they need to try and be positive, try and be optimistic, try and get their team over the line.
I think that one of the key words for me is trust. I remember being in. I still think this is one of the biggest wins in Rangers' recent history, given where it took the club. I still remember being in Ufa, 3 hours east of Moscow, with Rangers under Steven Gerrard. And remember that they went down to 9 men and they hung on it. The aforementioned big Kyle Lafferty, what a game he played that night. I remember seeing him up at centre forward, and then 20 seconds later he's sprinting back to cover it right back. And I remember speaking to Stephen after that game. There were a couple of us there, and I remember just saying to him, that was a real important win because it got Rangers into the group stage of the Europa League, if you can remember. And so much confidence built around the squad because of that. And Gerrard says trust. He says players are learning to trust each other, and that's the biggest thing in football. And so I think there's so many new players in that Rangers squad, but I think slowly but surely they're beginning to build a bit of trust. I think that the fans, and I get this because fans have been let down so often in the last few years with teams that have promised and failed to deliver. I still think that bridge is to be crossed in terms of trust between the players and the support. But I think you can see it coming, and I think if Rangers win the league this season, that trust will be established, absolutely. Even if they don't, I'm not so sure that there won't be a degree of optimism going into the next season as well. That Rangers are on the right line. But Scott's right. Trust will be, I think, fully established if Rangers can win the title. They've got a great chance.
Scott, I was quite buoyed by.
I was just going to say, guys. I wrote a piece not long ago talking about next season. I know it sounds daft thinking about next season, but I agree with you. You look at the profile of this squad, the ages, the fact that Danny Rohl's not been there that long, the fact that there seems to be a kind of newfound kind of unity, if you like, between the board and the fans and the owners and stuff like that. I think no matter what happens this season, and obviously it'll be a blow to them if they don't go and win the league now, I think next season they'll be in a brilliant position to go and try and win a title. I don't think there'll be wholesale changes made to the squad. I think they've built a decent squad, as I say, in terms of profiles and ages. We think of Sharmiti, 21, Chukwani, 22, Romans, 22, Gassama, I think, 23. Fernandez, 24. That's a developing squad. And I think if they could win the title this year, what that would do for them in terms of belief would be incredible in terms of next year, because you could then be looking at them really having the confidence to go and we'll go into a kind of period of dominance. But no matter what happens this year, I do think they're in a good place, a far better place than they were, obviously, at the start of the season. And looking ahead to next season, I think you'd be really confident getting into that campaign because of the experiences that this squad's picked up. Even guys like Asgard, I've been really critical of. I don't doubt he'll be better next season after the kind of this kind of settling in period he's had this year. So no, there's definitely cause for optimism, no matter what happens at the end of this term.
I think if I think if you reflect back on, I remember a couple of seasons ago, Clement's first full season in charge, and it was really unfair in Philippe, I think, with that whole Copeland Road debacle thing. And I've never known the Rangers fans to be so low going into a new season as they were that, 2-3 seasons ago now. And you're right, and I've got to pay tribute. I'm a member of the Rangers Fan Advisory Board, right? And I'm not telling tales out of school, but one of the most important things for me has been the work that Rangers have done behind the scenes, and I think most fans can see it too, just in establishing trust between the club and the fans, whether that be the FAB, Rangers Supporters Association, Club 1872, various supporter groups as well. So I don't think, irrespective of what happens this season, and as I said, I really believe Rangers can do it. But if they don't, I don't think that going into the new season will be as fevered as it is in the past. And I think you've got to give a lot of credit to certainly to the ownership for the investment that they've made. But within Ibrox as well, you've got to give great credit to guys like Greg Miller for the strategic role I think communications have played in communicating with the fans and bringing all the fans together. In my opinion, Greg's not just the best comms guy in Scottish football, he's the best comms guy in Scottish sport. Rangers are really lucky to have him. And I think that the work that he's doing behind the scenes, and because it's the old joke, isn't it? You know, 2 Rangers fans stranded in a desert island, and they set up 3 Rangers supporters clubs. But I think that there's a unity. I think we can see signs of a real unity on the field, but just as importantly, I think there's signs of unity off it. So I think that even if Rangers don't win the league this season, there won't be any mass hysteria from fans looking out for wholesale changes, because quite frankly, it's not required. The best is still to come from this team.
It's hard to imagine actually the Hampden debacle was just last season. Quite incredibly.
Last season?
Yeah, it feels like an absolute lifetime ago.
Yeah, so that would be 2 years ago. Yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago. And I felt really sorry for John Bennett, the chairman at that time. I got a lot of time for John. He's a really good man, a really good Rangers man, and there was people I think maybe around about him that really, really let him down with that. And I'm glad to see John is being embraced again, as he should be. History will and is treating him kindly as not just a Rangers chairman, but also as a man who stepped forward and put his hand in his pocket when Rangers needed it most. And I think any success that Rangers do go on to achieve now, I think you'll be looking at guys like John Bennett and John Gilligan and Douglas Park and Dave King and all these guys that have played the role, and Paul Murray in bringing this together. But I don't think Rangers are going to be as flaky going forward. I think that there's been real roots established for, I'm not saying sustained period of success, but sustained period of stability from which can come great moments of success.
I think we started this season in a similar position. The Russell Martin appointment, I think, kind of got a lot of people down early doors, and it felt like no one really thought we could win the league even before the season started. To be in this position now is great, but we're in this position now. If we don't, I keep saying it every week, if we don't get there, if we don't go over the line, I kind of feel if there was 10 games left of this season and we were in this position, I'd be really, really confident. It's a 5-game shootout. I kind of look at the split fixtures. Andy and I discussed them kind of briefly last week. We hadn't really had time to kind of, take them in fully, because our first game after the split is at home. 3 of our last 4 are going to be away from home. We don't have a chance to put on any scoreboard pressure on the other teams. Celtic get to do it twice. Hearts get to do it once to us and Celtic when we play one another. I just think it's such a tough run of fixtures. So, I mean, it's a 5-game shootout. If it was over, a longer period of time, I think Rangers would be in a really good place. But, anything can happen in these next 5 weeks.
Of course it can, and anything can happen, Dickie, positively and negatively, right? But the bottom line is, if you speak to any sportsman, it doesn't matter the sport, they talk about controlling the controllables, and it's a philosophy, no mate, not all about me, my favourite subject. But even like going through an illness, so what do? You control what you can control. So the only thing that Rangers can control, the Rangers players can control, is the level of performance that they bring to a game. So I get it. Rangers are going to be 4 points behind this Sunday if the other 2 big teams win, but there could be 3 points. It doesn't matter. Rangers win their games, they win the league. And so that's, I think, the message, that the mantra that Danny Rohl will be saying to his players. It doesn't matter about Celtic, and it doesn't matter about Hearts. It only matters about Rangers. And so how the fixtures fold and unfold, I know it's a kind of compelling narrative for some, but ultimately, Rangers control what they can control. They'll win the title.
I can't believe I'm saying this. Douglas knows a journalist, because I hate managers saying it, but it is a case of just take one game at a time. I mean, it's as simple as that. And as you say, the first game after the split, home to Motherwell, you'd fully expect Rangers to go and win that game. I know Motherwell have been good this season. Even last week they caused Hearts problems, but given Rangers form, you'd expect them to go and win that game. Hearts need to go to Easter Road for an Edinburgh derby, which I think as a Hibs player or a Hibs fan, I mean, the motivation you've got getting into that game will make that such a difficult fixture for Hearts. Hearts away form isn't great getting into the split, so could they potentially drop something? And all of a sudden Rangers are top of the league going to Tynecastle for the next game. I get where you're coming from. I think the fixtures have obviously been the way the way they've fallen, been a wee bit unkind having to go to Tynecastle and Celtic Park after the split. But so your initial reaction is, that's going to be tough, and it is, of course it is. But Rangers have already gone to Celtic Park and won, last season and this season. Even Tynecastle, which is obviously going to be raucous. I mean, you can imagine what that's going to be like. Bank holiday Monday, 5:30, Hearts v Rangers. It's going to be incredible. Even the last game at Tynecastle, it was raucous that day, and I thought Rangers were comfortably the better team for the first 30-35 minutes. Thought they handled it really well. So unlucky to get the goal chalked off for offside, if you remember, at the back post. Was it Majowski at the back post, just half a yard offside, and then 2 big mistakes basically for Jack Butland ultimately cost them the game. So I know what you're saying, but as Gaz says, control what you can control, take one game at a time, take each game in its merits. I don't think Rangers have got anything to fear getting into these 5 games post-split. They should be confident that they could go and win most of them and get the job done.
I feel like you're kind of reassuring me here. I'm kind of freaking out, and then you're like, no, calm down, Dickie, it's all right. A couple of individuals, individual performances are going to be so important coming forward. A couple of things I wanted to ask you about is Danny Rohl highlighted the influence of Nico Raskin this week. I've been a big critic of Nico Raskin this season. I think he's played within himself at times, but you're starting to see why he gets a game for a team like Belgium. Yusuf Chermiti was another one who I think on Saturday kind of embodied the Rangers' performance. I mean, that moment in the first half when we had a break, he had Gassama to his right, he had Moore to his left, and he passed the ball straight to the Falkirk player. And I'm sitting there thinking, how can a guy on a 5-figure sum a week not make a simple pass? Then he comes up with the 2 big goals. These guys are going to be really, really important players for us going forward. But I'm wondering, is there anyone you think might make a name for themselves who maybe hasn't so far this season? Someone might come at the pack, an Asgard, a Miofsky, someone like that, who might surprise a few in these last few weeks and make themselves a kind of Rangers legend.
I don't know about make a name for themselves, but I just think everyone's going to need to contribute, Douglas. And if they're going to win this league, I think Danny Rohl said it at the weekend. It's not just about it's not going to just be about the first 11. But you think of a guy like Oliver Antman, for instance, who comes off the bench at the weekend and gets an assist for the last goal. No, it's not been a great season for him. He's been he got a bad injury despite starting looking really good. a poor runner for him. I think his worst performance was the night Danny Rohl's first game in charge in Bergen, where he cost a goal and then got hooked, and all kind of went downhill for then. But he's came back. It looks like Danny Rohl's kind of filled him with a wee bit of confidence again. And even if it is just off the bench, if he can contribute or give Rangers something different, late in games, that could be vital in terms of winning the league. He's clearly a good player. He's a Finnish international. I think he was the top assist maker in Holland last season. So he's got something that hasn't quite worked out for him so far this season, but he could still be vital. So somebody like that, who you'd least expect, might just be really crucial to Rangers. Majovski's another one we've touched on. If he can just keep scoring every time he gets on the pitch, it could be vital. That could give Rangers the edge over Hearts and Celtic in the run-in. So I agree with you. I think, you're right, your Raskins, your Shamitis, that they're going to grab probably most of the headlines, but the guys just in the periphery, if they can contribute in these last 5 games, it could be absolutely crucial in terms of Rangers trying to win it.
You took the words right out of my mouth when you said Antman, because I think the one thing Antman does bring to the team, and you saw it with that assist, is that Rangers will be looking to maybe play a lot of counter-attacking football, particularly with fixtures away from home, and he's got blistering pace. So I just wonder if fixtures like Tynecastle and Celtic Park, when Rangers will have to absorb a bit of pressure, I just wonder if he'll prove to be a really good outball, knock it into space behind a fullback and just let him unleash. I think he's less likely to make an impact at home when teams are more likely to sit in. So yeah, he'll probably make an impact there from off the bench. But I just wonder if Danny Rohl will be thinking about the role that Antman can play, particularly in the fixtures away from home. I think he might just prove to be a really dangerous weapon there with his pace on the counter attack and his ability to get in behind a defence, particularly one that sits up high and leaves space at the back for him to exploit.
Even somebody like Conor Barron, Douglas, he'll be used in a different way, I would imagine. He might start a couple of the games, but obviously it looks like kind of Raskin, Chukwueze, the way they're playing the news, the kind of first picks in there. But in games where Rangers maybe need to tighten up, or whether they need to get a bit more solid in midfield or whatever, Barron could be crucial. We've said on here before, he gives Rangers midfield just something a bit different, a kind of tenacity that maybe the others don't have. So even a guy like that in the running, it might only be 20 minutes here or 50 minutes there towards the end of games just to see games out. Even guys like that could be crucial. I think so many of them are going to have a part to play if they're going to go over the line.
I think someone like Asgard, it looks like he's going to play a bit, with Nadiri out. Asgard seems to be the guy that's kind of come in to replace him. And even though he kind of flits in and out of games, he does seem to be a difference maker at times. When he is involved, it tends to be something really good or really bad. And you spend maybe 85 minutes, you wonder where he is. And then all of a sudden, like we've seen against Dundee United, the game had passed him by, then he beats a guy, pulls out a good shot, and Nadiri obviously scores a rebound. He goes on to get his goal. It was his shot against the post that kind of led to the goal that gets back in the game on Sunday. And I'm hoping maybe we might see a bit more from him in these last few weeks, because it looks like we're going to need to rely on him. It looks like he's a guy that's going to play. I don't know what you guys think of that.
I think you've summed it up perfectly. I mean, I think ultimately he's got to do more. Douglas, when you look at his kind of whole campaign, I don't think he's done enough given the kind of reputation that he came in with. I know he only came for Luton, with all due respect, but he was an international player, decent size fee. I think there was big expectations on him. I don't think he's really kind of fulfilled that. But I agree with you, he does play in moments and he does give you something. For an attacker, he's got good physicality, which is a bit different. But you're right, he does come up with moments. I mean, again, we were saying before half time at the weekend, he's probably going to come off. Me and Andy were saying that's probably the first sub will be Majovski for Asgard, but he comes up with that shot, as you say, that hits the post, which just triggers something, gets the goal before half time. That goal before half time is crucial in Rangers getting back into it. So I still think he does have to take his game up a level. He's got to be involved more in games, especially if he's going to start. But like I've said about a few others there, I think he will play a part, and he's the type of guy, he could just come up with a big moment against the Hearts or a Celtic or whatever that gets you the 3 points, which could obviously be vital in the circumstances.
A flash of genius from Asgard can make all the difference, but I still wonder if the manager can trust them in these big games, the bigger games. I mean, because he does have a tendency to pick up a card, yellow or red, as we've seen against Celtic, and early yellow cards in some of the bigger games, which I think is a vulnerability, and it's a vulnerability that Rangers can do without. Because the one thing that not just Rangers, but all the top 3 teams fighting it out just now will have to be very mindful of is on-field discipline in the next few weeks. But let's keep it to Rangers. Their disciplinary record this year has actually been pretty good, but they cannot run the risk of early yellow cards, and certainly not red cards, to make a challenging period all the more challenging. So that's my fear about Asgard. Can the manager trust them in these bigger games when not the red mist, but he can certainly allow the occasion to get a wee bit the better of him, or has he learned from previous experiences? Only the manager can tell us that. But I think it'll be interesting, particularly at Tynecastle and Celtic Park, if he starts the game, and if he doesn't, I think it's probably more down to his temperament, and the manager's just not quite been ready yet to trust him in these big occasions.
It's crazy saying that, guys, and you're right. He has picked up kind of daft yellows and obviously that red at Hampden, but I mean, he's not that type of player at all.
No, he's not. And there's a couple, I think, I've looked at them, the yellow card. What was the early yellow card he got recently? And I just thought it was a ridiculous decision, but one of many ridiculous decisions I've seen across the board from Scottish referees. It's another topic, I know, but the quality of Scottish refereeing is just so poor. And I'm not just talking about from a Rangers perspective. I see tackles consistently in the Premiership that if they were in Europe, they would be immediate yellow cards. Our referees seem to let far too much go, play into a game and so on and so forth. If a foul is committed in the first 5 minutes, it's a yellow card. Make it a yellow card. None of this warnings for players. And I think it really impacts on the performance of Scottish clubs in Europe as well. Don't put that all down to referees, but I think football can just be a wee bit too harem-scarum at times. I think it needs to calm down, and I think referees have got a role to play in that by going for their cards more often and letting players think twice before they jump into stupid tackles. And that's players across the board, by the way.
What do you think of the refereeing standards in general compared to when you first started reporting in football and all that, and you get into journalism and you were working in games and all that? How does it compare now to back then?
Listen, there didn't always seem to be as great a focus on, maybe I know, maybe it's a social media thing. I don't think the standard of Scottish refereeing is good at all, and I think questions should really be asked about what Willie Collum is doing at the SFA, the support that he's getting, as well as the KPIs. How is he being judged on the job that he's doing as well? What more can the club do to support him? Or indeed, is he even the right man for the job? Maybe this review that's coming up will lead to that. But I think the very fact that Willie Collum in Euro, 2006, I think it was our last referee to go to, it would have been Euro 2008, was the last referee from Scotland to be officiating at that level. 150 odd referees going to the World Cup and not officials going to the World Cup, not a single Scot. That to me says that the poverty of standard of Scottish refereeing is being exposed. And as for VAR, I was sitting talking to a couple of mates last night who are Jambos, and we both agreed. We were watching some of the Champions League stuff, and we just don't know. I no longer know what constitutes a penalty. I no longer understand what constitutes a handball in the box. And I think when passionate football fans no longer understand the rules of their own sport, I think football's got a really big issue with that. But I don't rate the standard of Scottish refereeing at all. I really, really don't.
Yeah, for me, it's a real concern that VAR's going to end up deciding this league season, and it was very noticeable against Dundee United. I sit in the much maligned Copeland cantilever, which ended up with that Hampden XL we spoke about earlier. And the first two goals, both goals in the first half, hardly anyone around us celebrated them because we were, you're waiting for VAR to pick something up, and it just shouldn't, it just shouldn't be like that. at all, should it?
It's
sucking the joy out.
When was the last time Rangers were awarded a penalty by the referee pointing to the spot and saying that's a penalty? I go back to Dundee a couple of weeks ago when, I mean, I know I've just said that, you don't understand what the handball is, but everybody's shouting handball. You could see it a mile off, but the referee allows play to go on and then uses VAR as a safety blanket. He doesn't have the bravery to point to the spot and then be proved that, sorry, you got that wrong. It was a penalty all day long, as far as I could see and everybody else in the stadium could see. And too often we're seeing that from referees. They are undermining their own self-confidence. They are undermining their own reputations by not making decisions in big games. I'm fed up going to Rangers games and seeing decisions that should be given, not given, and oftentimes going to a VAR review just as a comfort blanket for referees who aren't brave enough to put the whistle in their mouth and blow for an instant that anybody can see.
That's the biggest problem, Douglas, with the VAR thing. Is Gaz is 100% right. These guys, they don't want to make decisions on the pitch. No, they'll look at something and they'll think, right, that's a foul, that's a penalty, that's a red card, but I'll not go with it. I'll let it go and we'll wait and see what the other guys think. And if I need to have a look at it, I will. And that's killing the game, really. And as you say, that for me is a worry getting into the split, with the stakes so high. And the referees know that. Rather than have that confidence and belief just to go and make decisions as they see it on the pitch, I think there'll be a lot of cases in the next few weeks where there'll be incidents and refs just let it go, praying that they then get told by VAR to go and have another look at it and try and make the decision for there. And that's not a good place to be in terms of the referees in Scottish football.
But is that not a self-fulfilling prophecy then? So you've got VAR officials sitting just off the M8, wherever it is, at Bells Hill. So the referee doesn't make a decision. Does that not then put something into the VAR official's mind that, he didn't see that as a foul then, and it then clouds their judgment when they go back to look at it? Well, maybe he was right. Whereas if the referee makes a decision and he's strong about it, the VAR officials say, yeah, I can see why that was given, and that's why I don't like it. Maybe there's a school of thought that says VAR officials should be full time. If we can't have full time referees, maybe we can teach up and maybe clubs, and this is where SFA need help, where the clubs are the SFA. Maybe we could start to have the system in place that they get in England, increase use of artificial intelligence as well, which is becoming more and more widespread. I think we need to give the referees the best tools to do the job, but just now the standard of refereeing as a fan isn't filling me with much confidence.
Yeah, and I mean, people are confused. I mean, case in point, at the weekend, the McHoma challenge, I mean, for me, that's never a red card in a million years, because you can't have a direct goal scoring opportunity 10 yards in your own half. Yeah, if you look at the Hearts boy that gets sent off a few weeks ago, a kind of similar situation. It seems like the rules change from week to week. Willie Collum seems to change what constitutes a foul, what constitutes a penalty. We've seen it with the penalties as well. Scott, you and I discussed it at the Old Firm game. I don't think anybody's really arguing that it wasn't a penalty Celtic. And yet Willie Collum had said earlier in the season that an incident like that wouldn't be a penalty. So it's this kind of mixed messaging we're getting.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the thing that drives fans absolutely crazy. It feels like every time they do the review show with Willie Collum, it's like there's 3 or 4 apologies in there, for getting things wrong. And I think you're right. It feels as if I've been banging on about this for the last 20 years, even before VAR, just that inconsistency between the refs. And you mentioned the Dogzo thing. I mean, it feels like since Trusty obviously got sent off at Tynecastle, fans are so scared of this now, to get these decisions wrong. And that's why you're right, the Magoma thing, I think before that wouldn't even have been talked about as a potential red card, but all of a sudden people are debating it, and I think it all probably stems for that Trusty one at Tynecastle. But I agree with you. I mean, if that's a red card, as well chucking it. As you say, in your own half for an obvious goal scoring opportunity, it just doesn't make sense. So it is a worry getting into these last few weeks. Listen, it'll make it fascinating for us, obviously, as journalists. I'm sure there'll be plenty of stories, plenty of things to debate, but the clubs and the players and that, it would be a worry that, and I'm sure it won't be the case, but I'm sure managers and that will be worried. This title race could be decided by a decision or by VAR, and given what we've seen this season, with some of the ones that have been wrong, that would be a big concern.
We obviously get a wee break. Rangers get a wee break this weekend, a break we wouldn't have wanted, but as Gary said earlier, control the controllables. We've went on a wee break. Not often a massive fan of breaks kind of during the season. They've not been great in the past for certain teams. I remember Celtic's trip to Dubai in 2021 didn't end particularly well for them. So I'm hoping for something different here. But guys, crystal balls out. How do we see the last 5 games going? And are we going to be, are we going to get those red, white and blue ribbons on the trophy come the middle of May?
On you go, guys. You go first. I think you're more certain than I am.
I predict that Rangers and Hearts players will meet in the British Square in Benidorm on a Spanish break. They'll have a big Barney in the middle. It'll be all the papers. It'll keep us talking for weeks. And Rangers with black eyes and broken teeth will win the title in the last day of the season. Remember those days, Scott? You used to yearn for that. They were drinking peppermint tea and sparkling water. The boys went away to Spain and they were always getting hauled out of the coals and arrested by the local clink and all that stuff. I'm being facetious, but what a story that would be, Big Lawrence Shankland and Fernandez going toe-to-toe in the middle of Levante Beach. No, I think Rangers will do it. I think they've got the strength of squad. I think they've got the character. I think they've got the confidence. I think they've got the manager who knows how to tweak and change and see a plan and strategise. I'm confident it will be Rangers. Twists and turns, of course, there will be, but Rangers have got the form and Rangers have got the squad. I'm going for Rangers.
I'm maybe not as confident as Gaz, Douglas, but I've been sitting on the fence for ages. I mean, we've chopped and changed, obviously, with this title race throughout the season. But I do think, I just came out of the game on Sunday probably as confident as I've been that Rangers can actually go and do it. Just the way they responded, as I say, the goals that they're scoring just seem to have hit this wee patch at the right time. And I look at the other two, I look at Hearts away form, I look at Celtic's kind of lack of goals. I think Rangers have got a big chance now to go and win this. I agree with guys, I think there's probably one or two twists and turns still to come, but one game at a time. I think if they go and beat Motherwell in the next game, they'll put themselves in a really good position to go and win it. And as I say, I don't think going to Tynecastle and Celtic Park before, there was probably a bit of trepidation there. I don't think there's any fear going to these places the way Rangers are set up at the minute.
Brilliant. As I said earlier, if there was 10 or 12 games to go, I'd be really confident. A 5-game shootout, I think it's anyone's game. Our record at Parkhead after the split is awful. So as good a time as any to change that, I suppose. Gents, it's been an absolute pleasure, Gary. It's been great to hear your insight and your wisdom, and it's great to hear you're doing well. And I hope we hear from you again pretty soon, mate. Did you enjoy it?
Wonderful, great to be on, and great to be on amongst old friends. So thanks very much for inviting me here.
And Scott, no doubt we'll pick up next week and review the Motherwell game. Are you up to much this weekend? Have you got a wee weekend off because Rangers aren't playing? Or
I have indeed. I'll just be watching the Scottish Cup semi-finals by weekend off before we get back into it for the build-up to the Motherwell game.
Excellent. Right, gents, I'll let you go. Thanks very much, and catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Thank you.